So me and my friend finally decided, you know what? It's time that we actually start on a side hustle, something that we can invest in, something that we might think could turn into an actual future. Because one of us has already graduated, the other one is in their last semester, and let me tell you, we hate our majors. We absolutely hate it. So we were like, we need something. We need some sort of opportunity to change that. And we decided on woodworking. So that's what we're doing in this video. We're doing a cutting board. And honestly, it turned out pretty well if you stick around until the end. If you haven't realized it already, we're using maple and cherry, two beautiful looking wood types. And honestly, you might be asking, why aren't you using walnut? Walnut being honestly one of the greatest looking woods of all time. Well, in New Jersey, it is really expensive. Actually, it's stupid expensive. It's not something that you could profit off of unless you're just charging so much. So we decided, you know what? Cherry and maple is good enough. And it looked pretty nice at the end. Now, this isn't something a customer personally ordered. We were just winging it. We were just looking at what we had, the scraps that we had, and deciding, you know what? We have extra cherry, we have extra maple. Let's make a cutting board out of it. Now, this is something that you should do every time when making a cutting board or actually doing anything in woodworking, and it's to map it out. See how it looks, see if you like it, especially before you're doing a glue up, because once it's glued up, there's nothing you could do about it. There are some ways to fix it by maybe even changing it to an end grain cutting board, but this is the best way to guarantee perfection. Honestly, if you have a really, really good table saw and you have just great technique and great experience, planing doesn't really seem that necessary unless you're working with some really rough cuts. Here, we just wanted to make sure that it was going to come out right. There weren't any gaps or anything that we were going to regret. So we planed it as much as possible, as perfect as possible, until it literally felt like leather on our hands. Now it's time for the glow up, and honestly, this is your last chance to make any changes. Anything after this, and it's done. You're screwed. But now we're gonna use Tight Bond 3 and plastic gloves. This is pretty universal around the woodworking area. Some people like to use some very fancy rollers for the glue, but plastic gloves just work perfectly fine, and it's something everybody has. And yeah, honestly, it did a good enough job. Now it's time for clamping, and I've heard a lot of people say that you shouldn't clamp everything tightly until you have all your clamps in, and that's what we really did. One of the things that we're going to show in a little bit here is that we're going to put two woods together on the side with one clamp in order to keep all the woods completely straight. So when it comes to planing, we're not going to plane too much off, and that's exactly what happened. Now, if you've actually done everything properly and there's literally no gaps in between the wood and you've put enough glue, there's gonna be squeeze out. And let me tell you, once the glue is dried, this glue is almost impossible to get off unless you're using a planer. And I've heard that the glue can damage a planer, so it's best to clean it once you've finished everything and the glue still hasn't dried up yet. Now, one of my favorite parts when making a cutting board is actually planing it because once it's done with the glue up, it actually looks super ugly. with all that extra residue of glue and still like those rough bark edges that come from the wood. And once it comes out of the planer, oh man, it just looks amazing. Here's a comparison before, and man, it just looks way better. Now, this might seem a little random, but here's another cutting board that we actually did a few days ago that we just used some extra wood scraps and we were like, you know what, let's just make another cutting board with it. It's a little more simple, but honestly, we still thought it looked nice. Here, you could see us putting it through the planer and just look at how beautiful it looks, man. Honestly, absolutely spectacular. But look at the freaking mess. Literally took us hours to clean this up. Look at this mess. Now, remember how I mentioned that planing is one of my favorite parts of woodworking? Now we're going on to the worst part. This is absolutely the worst part. And as you can see here, my partner just drew pencil marks on the wood. This is so you could track what you've sanded and what you still need work on. And once those pencil marks disappear, you could actually start moving on to the rest of the cutting board. And right here, since the planer did a really good job, we skipped 60 grit and we just moved on to 120, and then we would finish off with 240. Now, this is where I ask you guys if you are genuinely doing what you always wanted to do since you were a child. I know some people don't really know what they want to do until they really reach the age of like their late 20s, late 30s, even. But are you genuinely happy with what you are doing? A lot of people nowadays, or at least people that I know, hate what they're doing, abhor what they're doing, and wish they could have done something that they actually love. Many of the times, they're just simply pressured into things that they simply don't want to do. Are you one of those people, or are you living your dream? We're gonna move on to routing, and honestly, this is the scariest part for me. And I think this is the scariest part for a lot of people because mess up here is super, super easy. I've done it many times, and one of the boards actually, the corner is gonna get chipped off completely, which I'm gonna try my best to fix, but again, it's not gonna be perfect. When you're doing woodworking, it's never ever gonna be completely perfect. But yeah, this is definitely the scariest part. Now we're at the part where objectively it is the best part of doing a cutting board, and that's doing the wax. Man, this thing just looks so much better. Before it looked completely dull because of all the sanding, all the planing, but now that we're using this wax, the color is really starting to pop out. We would do 2 coats of this, although we would only record one of them, but later on after it dries, you'll see that this is just a completely different board than what it was before. If you are interested in any of these cutting boards or really any of the products we make on video, check out our Shopify link in the description. We usually have it there. If it's not there, it's probably sold out, or we just decided, you know what, we're just gonna take it off. But if you are interested, visit the website. I promise you won't be disappointed. bro.
Let's set this way. Is it need more slack or is it okay?
It's good.
Bro, that was genuinely
Just a tad bit off the corner.
Bro, that is perfect.
Woohoo! This opened up my brain.
We're done now?
Finally, it's the last step of doing a cutting board, and that's adding the feet. Some people may think it's unnecessary, but genuinely, I think it looks nice. When you put it on top of a countertop, it almost makes the board look like it's floating, and it adds just like that little extra character that you won't find in cheaper boards, so I quite like it. Now tell me what you guys think. I think it looks super nice. Do you think it's unnecessary for a cutting board? Do you think this is just too much? Or do you think people will actually enjoy this? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later.